Yeah, so I mean, I was working. I mean, I don't know if we even ever talked about this, you and me, but I was an auditor. I was leading audits in Dublin, in Ireland, working for Ernst and Young. It's one of the big four audit firms in the world, and I was there are a lot of pharmaceutical companies in Ireland, so I was leading audits on big pharmaceuticals like Boston Scientific, and they make stents for hearts. So very important work. And then also Allergan, which make Botox. In fact, Dublin or Ireland is one of the biggest producer of Botox in the world. So we used to go and audit. Yeah, I know. I was surprised too. So we used to lead the audits there, and I mean, it was fascinating. I absolutely loved it. But I always found that part of my role, I had to do a lot of training as well for the new recruits and all that. And I always find I just absolutely love that side of it as well as the business. I really enjoy the business where it's absolutely amazing to see a company working and talk to the top people and the people in the warehouse and the people in the factory floor and just see the whole big picture of a company. So I decided to move to Barcelona, and I was lucky that here I was able to sort of marry the two things I love the most. So there's training and business. So I got a lot of opportunities just based on the experience that I had working for kind of executive skills coaching type thing, helping executives to sort of bring their skills or what they know into sort of more international context as well, like focusing on the newest ways of communication, cultural awareness, all of those things. And then I started also, of course, teaching finance and economics. So it's been great experience. And I'm happy that I still managed to keep in the business world because it keeps me really up to date with what's happening. And because obviously it's changing all the time, and the new ways of thinking and new ways of working and everything. And I can bring that into the classroom as well, which is
All right, that's great. So at ESEI, you teach finance and economics.
yeah.
Tell us a bit about like, these two subjects, these two areas.
Well, I mean, it's hard to choose which one is more important and more relevant to your life. And I don't want to knock any of the other subjects because I know they're all really important. But I mean, everything we do, every thought we make, practically economics has influenced it. I mean, especially now, it's never been more obvious with coronavirus how important economics is in our life, from microeconomics to just looking at behavior of people and how we make people do what we need them to do for the benefit of society as a whole, such, for example, as wearing masks now and how governments can do that. So then, and also then looking at the economy and trying to control things like unemployment, inflation. So it's so relevant. It's absolutely everywhere. It's in everything you hear and listen. It's there. It's such an important subject, and I can't imagine a student in business not um, learning about it. And I find my students that really like it. It's so interesting. It's just when something is really relevant to your life, it's so easy to get into it, and people, it gives you a lot of confidence when you start hearing terminology on the news or in articles or something on whatever on LinkedIn, and that you can actually know what they're talking about. And that's what they say is like, oh, no, finally I heard this GDP. You're like, oh, I know what it means. And that's great. And then on the other side, we have finance, which really is obviously, I mean, money is a huge important thing in everyone's life. There's no real situation where it doesn't exist. But as all of our students tend to really want to either be CEOs of a company or set up their own companies, be entrepreneurs, if you don't understand the finance side of it, you have no chance of succeeding. It's just impossible. You have to understand the numbers behind the plans, the ideas, to get funding, to progress, to make sensible plans, strategies. The finance has to be there. And I find that students maybe are not as interested initially, at least, because it's intimidating. There's a lot of jargon. It's almost like a whole new language that you have to learn, the finance world. But once you kind of they start to see how it could impact their life and how they'll be able to go in and with business plan and explain things properly and show that they understand the numbers, they really get into it. And I mean, it's a fascinating subject as well. It really is, and it really helps you to understand what's going on with business. If you want to invest as well, it's always there. So they're
Mhm.
both great for different reasons.
Right, that's great. One of the things that we've been working really hard on at ESEI is our teaching methodology. So involving, making the classroom a lot more dynamic, collaborative. Bringing students together to work on projects. So how is tell us more about, like, the teaching methodology that you use in the classroom, and yeah, and why you feel that this is the teaching methodology that you've adopted.
Well, I mean, I've always agreed with that in general because I often, often came to mind that when I was younger, the things I remember the best from school are the ones I did projects on. Like I did a project on leaves, strangely, leaves on trees, and I still remember all the names of the trees just because it was a project. If I'd learned that for an exam, I know I wouldn't have remembered it. So I've always been passionate about that. I definitely agree it works. And I also believe that in this day and age of the availability of knowledge. I mean, I don't, no student needs to be in my class to learn these things. They can go and learn them online. But what I can bring them is help make sure that they're on the right path, that they're thinking about it in the right way, or they're making the links and connections they should be, so they can find the information and they can put it together. And it's a much more wholesome way of learning, and it's something that actually really lasts in your mind. You really remember things, and it's a very dynamic and interactive environment. It's very interesting because maybe some project could be setting up like in finance, setting up a company and doing a business plan, and or maybe just for my part it would be just doing the budget for what they expect it's going to cost to set up the company. And you can just see how they think at the start and how they learn that, oh no, that you can't just say, oh, it's going to be 10 million this year and 20 million next year. No, you have to find the numbers behind it. You have to do the research, and to watch them do that, I mean, they learn so much. And I think the best thing about project based as well is it really highlights the gaps where they're missing information that I can then go in and fill in, or put them in, no, you need to think about that. Have you thought about that? And it's just, you end up with a much more just complete learning experience, which I really think it's great. And it's working really well. And in fact, I've been through the transition of when we weren't really doing as much projects as we are now, and I can see the difference in the classes and the results and the feedback from the students, and it's been great. It's really really successful.
All right, that's awesome. Shirley, you're probably one of the key people, no, like in the program, and one of, like, the yeah, like the point of reference for students, no, like in your role as a tutor. So tell us, what can students expect from you as a tutor in their bachelor program?
Well, I mean, I think I try. I'm always keeping in mind of my first day in university, and I was so scared, and it was just so intimidating. I didn't understand anything, schedules, the whole thing was just really, really overwhelming. And I was living at home with my mother, making my dinners and everything. And I think of these guys coming to another country, first time in their lives, maybe a new language and a university experience on top of this, study, nobody on their back. It's such a incredibly big challenge. And I try to just let them know that I'm there to help them. It could be just to say, okay, you need to talk to this person, or it could be like, oh, I'm just having a bad day. It's like, okay, let's think about what can we do? How can we get you out more, or anything like that. I just try to, sort of like a counselor, I guess, with also with some practical advice, give them some advice of my own experience as well, and just give them someone that they can just talk to and
Mhm.
feel like no judgment, no criticism, nothing. I just want to be there, and I really understand how difficult it is. And I think I'm fortunate as well because they're usually my students as well, so I kind of know them. So I think that helps them. They're not going to some office with the door with my name on it. They don't know who I am. They know me. So they often come up to me at the end of the class and say, Shirley, can we talk for 10 minutes? And it's very informal and relaxed, and I mean, I care about them. So it's I don't even consider that part as a job. I would do, it's just something, it's easy to do. I want them to succeed, and any way I can help, I do help. And and I think they appreciate it. It's definitely
Mm-hmm.
nice to have someone to talk to in the,
Mm-hmm.
when you're
Mm-hmm. All right, that's awesome. That's perfect. And on your side, no, like when students can expect from you, like open doors, someone to talk to, like great communication, someone to have their back, no, like with
yeah,
all of these new
hopefully.
changes. And what about your side? Like, what do you expect from students during the program?
Well, okay. I mean, I definitely wouldn't be of the school of, this is the tough world and you have to make it on your own. I don't agree with that. I think everyone needs the correct pillars of support available to them for them to succeed. However, there has to be responsibility on their part. And I have to see some of the plans and ideas that we put in place happening, or them making an effort to make it happen. It's not always going to work, but it's very important that they come to me as well, as I can't always be going to them. They need to come to me and say, Shirley, I didn't do this, or it's not, I don't know why. And that's fine. And I mean, I'm never going to criticize them. We have to say, why isn't it working? What's going on? But I definitely think they have responsibility. They have to. I mean, no more than when they go into a job, they're going to have responsibilities for certain things, like being on time, or making sure that if they're not going to make a deadline, they get in touch in advance. So they have to take their part of it seriously as well. And if I think they're not, then I mean, that's something we have to discuss, because
Mm-hmm.
that's part of them feeling like they're owning the situation, as opposed to me just pushing them all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, definitely. For sure. Okay, so now let's move on to probably the why people actually study business. No, like most times, people well, I guess it's a bit different, no, because sometimes or at least I know that that was my experience, and a lot of the students that I talk to, particularly when they go into bachelors, they're not even so sure exactly why they're doing it. Masters are pretty more okay, I want
Yeah.
to see this particular, or I want to go into this field in terms of my career aspirations or my career development, and so this program makes a lot of sense for me. For the bachelor, it might be a bit fuzzy, no, and sometimes they're not even sure what to expect in terms of career opportunities afterwards. So I mean, what do you, or what can you advise to students? Like what should be some of their expectations in terms of like job opportunities after they complete the program?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very general course, as opposed to, like you said, a master's, which is where you specialize in. So it covers all the areas of business. As in, when I say business, I kind of mean a company. So you have marketing and human resources, people management, finance, all of these things, as well as your own personal, maybe your own personal growth and how you can market yourself. So if you have any interest in working in a company, setting up your own company, consulting, that kind of thing, then it's perfect. It's a perfect starting ground, because obviously then maybe you need to go on and specialize, but it will give you a fantastic overview of the business world. And I mean, you can go straight from there and start working in a company at the starter levels. Ideally, if one of the subjects really interests you in a department there, work as an intern is always a great opportunity to get a feel for something and see if you really like it as much as you think in in the class. And I think it just gives you the taste, like little taste of each area. And as the years go on, you get a little bit more specialized in each area. So there's absolutely endless list of things that you can do as long as you're working in the business world. um, but obviously, then something like a master's is a good option, like I did myself. Like, I mean, I started off with the business because I really was interested in business in general. I love companies. How do they work? Maybe I thought maybe I'd like to set up a company. And then I really enjoyed finance and economics, and I specialized in economics, and I did a master's in economics. But then economics tended to be a bit more into the academic side of it, and I felt I really wanted to get back into working in the industry. So I moved into accountancy, and it's the chartered accounting. So that was kind of the trajectory I took. But like everyone has different options. Like HR is different as well, marketing as well. Just there's so many options. It's a fantastic. It's just a great stepping stone for
Yeah.
starting off. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. I mean, I had a similar experience myself, and I just found that there is so much like opportunities in terms of jobs. No, like
Yeah.
it wasn't like I had an idea of what I wanted to, well, or I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but like business sort of like helped me to find other opportunities that maybe what I was focused on, like it wasn't too like job opportunities weren't available there, but they were available in other things, no? Which
Yeah.
because I studied business, I was also prepared to take up those opportunities. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a program that gives you a lot of choices. So yeah. Shirley, do you, I know you've probably experienced a lot of different students, over the past years, no? Like in your
Yeah.
classrooms, current students, students that have graduated. I mean, do you have like a specific success story that sticks in your mind, a story of a student that you might want to share?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't consider, like, I can't think of anyone that I would consider that wasn't reasonably successful, because I've kept in touch with a lot of them through LinkedIn, and I can see them getting jobs or, putting out posts from the companies they worked in. And obviously, if they're good students, and you're not surprised to see how well they've done, and just grateful that you played some role in that. But I suppose the ones that maybe struggled a bit more are the ones that I consider, um, you know, I feel more proud of the helping them in their achievement, because they all come from extremely different backgrounds. And even though sometimes in the first day or two you can have the person who's the joker in the class, or the person who seems a bit lazy, and then especially as being a tutor, I get to talk to them a bit more and get to see their background stories. And it's fascinating to see, like, some of them really had a tough life, or they had a lot of struggles, or it was hard for them to get to where they are. Maybe they're a bit defensive, or they're afraid of failing. And to be able to help them to change that mentality, and to free them from their past as such, and give them choices to succeed, has been always been just the most rewarding. But I can think of, I mean, we had one student once, and he kept missing class a lot. And that's part of my job as well, with kind of to keep on top on the ones that weren't around. And we sat down, and I really felt, talking to him, even though he never used the word, that he was kind of depressed. I would say he was very lonely. He missed home. So we talked a lot. And in the end, I talked also to his father, and we managed to, support him. And he managed to complete the year, and get his exams and everything. And really, I think in another situation, if just sure, the university I went to, where we had 300 students in a lecture hall, he would have just disappeared. I mean, he would have just never managed to finish or anything. So I think that's something really, really, that I really like about essays, that that it's much easier to succeed, because you have much more support and a personal experience in other places. And
Mhm,
I just
mhm.
I have one other student as well, and he has a problem that often sometimes our students have, is that he really struggled with English. And he was a very smart student and everything, but he really, really struggled. And in the class, you could see that he was very, very bright and very interested in everything. But then in the exams, he was failing. So we sat down and we talked, and we developed a plan for learning English, and to improve his English. And I just saw him the other day, actually, when I was coming back, and he's like, Shirley, and he's, finishing his final year now. And it's great to see it, like, and again, I think in a big university, probably he would have just not finished. So yeah, those are the nice stories.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. All right, so moving to a totally different topic now. We're not fully post-COVID yet. We're still in the COVID battle. So, how has COVID affected your course? How do you think COVID is also affecting businesses? Like, what's been the impact in education, as well as like, in the business environment, do you think?
Well, I mean, starting, I suppose, with the education side of things, I mean, we finished out last year, obviously, with everything online. And it was all very quick, but I mean, we adapted well. We did a lot more of one-to-one sort of catch-up sessions with people as well if there was problems, and everyone managed it, and it was great. When I was coming back this week, I was just like, oh, how is it going to be? And I was worried. I was how are the students going to be? And I found that it's amazing. Now we have the students online that are like up on the board behind us, and then we have my students that are in the class, and we're all interacting, and it's incredible. It's just they're all over the world, and the people that are in line we're able to do breakout rooms, and they can work together. And I mean, it's different, and completely different to what we were doing before, but it's working so well. I'm delighted with this, and I think it gives so many opportunities of people who maybe couldn't travel for whatever reason, or um had to stay at home, can now be part of the experience and can study with us, and it really does feel like they're in the classroom. I didn't expect that. I thought it would be more, but no, I'm delighted with it. I'm so impressed. So, well, I mean, we're just adapting, and this is the new future. And I mean, I think it's something that after COVID, hopefully, we will still continue in these kind of ways, because it's just a wonderful way of getting to more students, and for giving more opportunities. From the business perspective, I mean, obviously, like for an example of Spain is facing massive unemployment now, and it's obviously a terrifying time. I think people mentioned back in the 2009 crisis. I think we're back, possibly even worse, but lessons have been learned from the last time, and I think that when the past the governments were not supporting people, now they're supporting people, and I really think that there will be much more of a stimulus package that will, right now maybe is not the best time to to see the opportunities, but I do think that we're just in this really big transition, and what's the good side of it is that a lot of things that really were inefficient and weren't working, and companies that weren't really working and should have probably be changed to something else, are going, and new companies are coming out, and new ways of thinking, new ways of working from home, giving lots of really exciting actually opportunities for people. I mean, it's challenging, and certainly salaries will not be what they were. Absolutely not. These kind of things that we have to expect is normal in a time of transition. But I think the opportunities will be a lot less of this traditional old school way of thinking, and much more dynamic, exciting environment, which is much better suited to the generations of my students who that have that mentality and are much more technology focused, and not really into this hierarchy system that maybe we would have we would have adapted to better than them. So I mean, I'm kind of optimistic of the future whenever it comes.
All right, awesome. Perfect answer. Okay, final question. What advice do you have for students who would like to join the program?
Well, obviously you need to research it well, and make sure that you feel that it's right for you. Be clear that, okay, the classes are 3 hours a day. On top of that, you need to really spend another 3 hours for like, studying, researching, trying to get to grips with what you're doing. So it's not you just come to class and you go home. So you need to mentally be prepared for that, and think that, okay, can I dedicate this kind of time? You really need to research Barcelona as well to understand a little bit more about where you're going to be, and try to find a place to live that makes sense. I think that can often be a problem. The students don't get the right location, and then they're on a bus and they can't, so those kind of things can really make a difference to your first experience. And if you've already kind of sorted that out, then before you arrive, or when you arrive, it would be good to make a trip up to the school before you've actually started, to sort of figure out buses or trains or metros, or if you're going to cycle and how that works, and just research and sort of mentally prepare for the fact that you're going to have to put in some work. If you really want to do really well, you're going to put in some work, but you will obviously, it's extremely enjoyable as well. And you're never going to regret studying hard and learning a lot of new things.
All right, awesome. Perfect. Well, Shirley, those are the questions that
Yeah,
that I have, questions that we usually receive from students. So I'm really
great.
happy that that you were able to address them for us today. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really
Problem. My
helpful.
pleasure.
And yeah, like I'm glad that we got this footage, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of students making the
Hope so.
decision to study at ESEI for sure.
Great. Well, it's lovely to talk to you as well.